Welcome back to the shop. This is the second part of fixing hydraulic leaks on the Power Trac. On the first part of this, we found a massive leak in a hydraulic cylinder that we replaced. And I will try to link that video. I've seen other people do it. I'm sure we can figure it out. In fixing that leak, we found another leak. Coming out of that hydraulic block right there. This line, still dripping, the swivel on it had totally blown out. And it's very loose and wobbly. Another problem that we discovered in taking it apart, it was also cross-threaded. Let me get some light in here. But that fitting right there also is going to need to be replaced out of that block. Fortunately, we were worried initially that hose that was leaking, it disappears through that hole in the front panel. There is an absolute ton of hoses that come right through the center channel and go back into this mess. I was dreading there was one of those. Fortunately, it's not. And it goes right up to the top of this column in the center and is part of the steering, I guess. It must be a pressure line to the steering or a return line. I'm not entirely sure. You can see it better from the other side. It is this top line right here. So fortunately, it's looks like it's pretty easy to get to. The parts store is closed today, so I'm gonna get that hose out of there, get to the parts store first thing tomorrow morning, have a hose made, and we'll be back with a new hose and hopefully get the Power Trac back to operational. Another day later and $50 poorer. Got a new hose made. Here's the old one. You can see this fitting is just completely trashed. In taking that apart, we found another problem. Well, that's a good place for that. This was the fitting that was in, there it is, that was in the valve body. So totally cross-threaded and goobered up. Definitely not 90 degrees anymore. It is a little tight there. I couldn't get a 45 of the right. It is a direct replacement. I couldn't get a 45 of this, so I got a 45 here. I don't really want to use the brass, but I'm hoping I can, avoid that and get it to fit. If not, we can probably rig something up with this. But with all the wet, heavy snow we've been having, everyone's been blowing hydraulic lines, and it took all day to get this made, but we've got it, and it's nighttime, and we're gonna put it in. So hang out, and we'll see how it goes. All right, back at the tractor, just getting ready to clean up this valve body and get it ready. There's a little bit of thread sealant still in here, so I'm gonna clean this guy up. In looking at it, the valve body is extremely loose. You can see that moving. I'm just moving the lift lever back and forth, and I'm getting a lot of shake in there. So it's held on by looks like 3 bolts, probably 1/4-inch bolts. So I'm going to tighten that up, clean up the thread sealant that's in there, and then we'll start reassembling this. I'm going to test fit it, and we'll see how it goes. When we put it back together, here's the new fitting, and it's very bright. 3/8 JIC by 1/4-inch pipe. The 1/4-inch pipe, you can see on the JIC ends, it's kind of it looks like a flare fitting. That surface mates up with that surface inside the hydraulic hose. The other side is just pipe thread, and that needs to be sealed. The JIC fitting, the sealant is actually these two cones meshing together. on the pipe thread. That needs to be sealed. I'm going to be using RectorSeal. This stuff is safe for pretty much all different types of metal, and it's non-reactive to most petroleum products. So it's safe to use with the hydraulic fluid, or the motor oil in this case that this uses for hydraulic fluid. And on such a small fitting, we're just going to put a little bit on the male side. But I'm going to get this cleaned up, test fit, tighten those bolts up, and we should be back to being reassembled. Well, here's our test fit. Looks like everything's going to fit pretty good. In tightening this up, I did notice it's bent. The frame's bent right here. And that may have been a factor with the all these bent fittings. I have a feeling that when I rode this thing up on the bucket, that this part impacted this part and bent it. So I'm going to keep my eye on those fittings, and probably in the future we're going to have to take that whole thing apart, straighten the frame out a little bit, and put it back together. Looks like the fit's going to work right now. I've just got the hose out. I haven't routed the whole thing yet, but we will get this tightened up in here and reconnect it. All right, we're all installed. You see it hooked up there. You can see that yellow ring is the RectorSeal. Scrub it through, and so we got our shiny new fitting. There it is, in amongst Power Trac's wiring. The RectorSeal, you're supposed to let it set up for a period of time. So I'm going to give that overnight. You can see we routed through here. I'll let the RectorSeal set up overnight before I pressurize it and leak test it. I'm pretty confident in our repair here. Got a couple more quarts. Actually, I got a whole case of 1040 to fill it back up. So I will put all the covers back on. Actually, I will wait and leak tech it first. That's my luck. The covers is only a dozen bolts or something to put it back on, so no big deal. We'll get it back together. I will leak test it in the morning, and not a moment too soon, as I don't know if you can tell, but it is starting to snow again. But I'll see you in the morning. All right, we're back. It's the next day. I was waiting for the RectorSeal to set up on the hydraulic fittings. We had a brief change in primary directive. My wife reminded me that while I introduced you to the shop, I had pretty much occupied the main purpose of the garage, which was her parking spot. So we had to make that readily available first. So it turned the rest of the building into a bit of chaos, but retaining balance there is important too. So back to the tractor. It did snow last night, but not enough to need to plow today, which was really nice. So we're gonna get this fired up. I did add 3 quarts of oil back here to bring it up to level. So I think that we'll start her up and give it a leak check. If that checks out, we'll button it back up and call it good. Hang tight. All right, well, I don't know what you guys saw, but it looked good from where I was sitting. I'm going to look at those tapes and make sure of that. I did find another number of other loose hydraulic fittings was in there, so I did go through and just make sure I tightened everything up. But it looks pretty good, so I'll review this footage, make sure you guys didn't see anything I didn't. We'll button it back up, and I think we're in business.